Hello fellow makeup lovers, how are you guys doing today? I am so excited for this video because I'm just very hopeful that y'all are going to like it. So recently I was just scrolling through my comment section as I do, and I got a video request that literally made me gasp, and I was just like, that is such a good idea. So I just want to give credit where it's due to Defective Shark. They said, I would love to see your take on what a Kaleidos Apple eye palette might have been. So this comment was on a video of me talking about new makeup releases, talking about the new Kaleidos Apple Collection, and how when I saw this photo, this advertisement, I was like, oh my gosh, this color story, like it's gonna be the most beautiful eyeshadow palette. But there was no eyeshadow palette in the collection, unfortunately. It was just based around a bunch of lippies. It's still a beautiful collection, but this photo in particular just really inspired me because I had thought, like, wow, what a palette this is going to be. So because of that comment, I decided to go ahead and take the photo and just really dissect it, use all of the colors in the photo as inspiration, and come up with what I thought the Kaleidos Apple palette could have been had it been a real thing and not just a lost hope. So this is the color story that I came up with, and as I stated, it is specifically inspired by that photo from Kaleidos. If I was making just an Apple palette just out of my own mind, there'd probably be like reds and greens and like maybe some yellow, and I'd probably think like to stick to a traditional apple. This is more like a poisoned apple, like if poisoned apple was a palette, and it got like a lot of like the dark purples and grungy tones, the pops of red, there's like a little pop of teal in the fan, and it's just kind of scattered just a tiny little bit on the photo. There's a pop of white. I got inspired by the shadows in the palette, the spots that the light was hitting and changing the purples to different colors, and this is what I came up with. It was also extremely important to me to do a bunch of really special shadows between my Burnovitch shadows, shadows from Terra Moons, just because Kaleidos is really great at doing those like really sparkly, duochrome, interesting toppery type shades. So I wanted to include those, even if it's obviously a different formula from different brands. I feel like that's part of what makes a Kaleidos palette. And then I also wanted to go ahead and do 15 shades like the palettes they've been doing recently. I started off with 12 shades, and then I was like, this is a really pretty color story. I really like it, but Kaleidos has never done a palette with 12 shades. So then I went ahead and added a little bit more to it, and I just really liked the way that it ended up. So in today's video, I'm just going to go through and do swatches and just walk through every single shade that I picked out. And then at the end, I'm going to be showing y'all how I got this eye look using this palette. And then I also did use one lippy from the Kaleidos Apple Collection to kind of go along, and I think it looks really fun. It's giving me like a witchy Halloween poison apple moment. Snow White better steer clear of my house. So let's go ahead and jump on in. So as you can see, the very first shade is a white, but it is a white with a shift of red. It's Terra Moon's Red Giant. It's one of my favorite shades. In the photo, there is just a solid matte white apple, but I really didn't want to do a matte white. I thought I would incorporate a white shadow that was a little bit more fun. So it's a white with a red shift to it. It's what I'm using as my highlighter today. And I mean, I've talked about this shade too many times to count. So there is Terra Moon's Red Giant. There's also so many shadows in this palette from Terra Moon's, but I feel like they were just like hitting this color story perfectly with the collections that they have. Next we have the shade Runts from Divina, which is just a really beautiful soft lavender purple. This one, swatching, you can see it looks a little bit more sheer. I typically use it wet or with a glitter primer, so I'm going to try and pick up a little bit more just so you guys can see what this color is made of. It's just a really beautiful light purple. So there is Runts, that shade, and the following shade, which is a really beautiful light purple matte. This one is Libra from Terra Moon's. Those are both just kind of inspired by the lighter purples, especially with the lip set that was on the right side of the palette. All of the lippies are like a really light purple matte packaging, so I thought that this shade in particular really matched the packaging well. So next we have the shade Azure Skies, which is a like neon teal matte from Terra Moon's, and this one, again, not something I would think to include in an apple palette, even a poison apple palette, but the little pops of this shade throughout the picture, I thought they just added like a nice little a little oomph, a little extra something something. So I was like, why not include it in the palette, do something different, just be completely inspired instead of like making it more monochromatic like I would have in my head. And then lastly, we have one more just super sparkly, toppery, purple, blue shifting shade. This is Starburst from Terra Moons. Mine is broken, and Terra Moons was so kind to send me an extra one, but I was able to save part of this one, so I didn't want to just move on completely, even though like half the pan is gone already. But anyways, here's what Starburst looks like, and I mean, I feel like it kind of just captures the essence of what else is going on in this row. It's got that purple, that blue, it's just so sparkly, like it looks like something Kaleidos would do. So yeah, that is the first row. Okay, so the next three shades are inspired by the fabric, the way that the light is hitting it, and the shades that's happening because of the light that's hitting it is what inspired me to choose these next three shades. So this first one is X08 from Bernovich, and it is a very, very intense, like a little bit chunky if you don't like pick it up really carefully, like rose gold pinky shade, and it's just so beautiful. Like I feel like it looks like silky fabric almost. Something about the shine is giving me that feeling. I feel like on my arm it doesn't even look that intense, but you can see it on like the inner part of my eye, and it's just such a stunning shade. And then next we have a mid-tone orchid purple from Terra Moons called Orchid. I just felt like this was a good matte shadow to include. And again, it's kind of got that coloring. This was actually the last shade that I did, and I started off with something a little bit more grungy, a little bit more like a gray purple, and then I started doing an eye look, and I was like, you know what, that actually doesn't capture the essence that I wanted. So I switched out with this one, and I'm much happier. Right, next we have the shade X30 from Bernovich, which is a really beautiful, super metallic, like plummy purple shade. Like, oh, so pretty. Like, how can that shade not make you happy? Well, the next purple and the other deeper purples that we'll get into in a little bit are kind of more inspired by just like the fabric in general, the spots where the light isn't hitting it. So we've got this shade here, which is from Divina. It's the shade Virago. This one is just a really beautiful kind of plummy burgundy kind of shade. I don't know why that one's not swatching as well. Feels like I might have accidentally got a little bit of hard pan in the pan, so I'm gonna probably try and take care of that in a little bit, but it's a really beautiful burgundy. Next, my go-to pop of metallic red shimmer is the ACI13 shade from Adept Cosmetics. I'm not sure that it's still available. There's a few shades in here that might not still be available, but that's really not the point of this video. It's to inspire you, and just maybe you could pull out some of your own single shadows or shadows that you have in palettes if you want to do a color story similar to this, or just feel inspired to just look at whatever photo it is and be inspired by it. It doesn't have to do anything with Kaleidos or apples or whatever, but just wanted to let you know I don't think that one's available anymore, but it's my go-to red shimmer because I just feel like it's like the perfect tone of just like super metallic red. And I mean, obviously you can see the pops of red in the photo. Some are kind of like more of a pinky red, but I wanted to go for a true red. So there's ACI13. I mean, you can see why I love it. So for the last row, I kind of snuck in a little pop of green because I can't help it. If I think of poison apples or like just this like grungy apple theme, I think of a green, and I snuck that in with this shade right here called Midnight Winter from Terra Moons. I don't know if you can tell because it looks super purple on screen, but it is a like black base with a purple and a green shift. So I feel like it's like the perfect grungy shade to go along with this. Like, you see the green right there? Like, does that not give poison apple vibes? Last time I talked about it, I said that it gave perfect Halloween vibes. So yeah. All right, next we have my go-to favorite matte red shadow, which is unfortunately no longer available. It is Sauce from Colored Raine. It does not always want to pick up the best with a swatch, but it is such a good, super deep matte red. I wish that they would bring this back. Like, it makes me so sad it's not available because I just don't have anything else that quite compares to it, at least not as far as single shadows go. I mean, you could go into like the reds in the Melt Muerte palette, or There's some really nice reds in the Beauty Bay Wilderness palette, or I don't know, there's lots of palettes that have reds, but I just wish this single was still available. We have another deep purple. This one is called Smoky Plum from Cosmetics. It is such a good formula. I feel like it's such a, like, just such a nice, I don't know why I said such so many times. It's such a nice plum, and it's a great deepening shade to go along with this color story. And the formula is just bomb. Build it up a little bit so you can see. It's just so good. Next we have the shade Blood Moon from Terra Moons, and I chose this one specifically because it's like a multi-chrome type shadow, but it has like this really deep teal and a really deep red, and I feel like those vibes are kind of shown throughout this picture, but then it also has that super black base, and I felt like if there was gonna be a multi-chrome in this palette, this one just goes along really well, and it's another like just really deep fun shade. Like it kind of just looks black on camera, but in person there's a lot more going on. It's like the most grungy multi-chrome I have. And then last but not least, I went for a super pigmented matte black shadow. I mean, you do see some pops of black in the photo, mostly like more deep purple, but because I needed 3 extra shades, like I said, I went from 12 to 15, I thought, you know what, I may as well go ahead and just add a super nice deep pigmented matte black. Can't go wrong with that. So I don't know if I said it already, but that is Makeup Geek Corrupt. At least the old formula. Their new formula of Corrupt is not as good as the old one, so I'm just gonna keep using it until I don't have it anymore. But that is my entire, like, my version of the Apple palette. Like I said, I mean, it's completely inspired by the photo, and I think that overall I'm just really happy with how it ended up. I think it's a very fun, inspiring color story, especially like giving me like spooky Halloween vibes. So I plan to keep the palette together for a while and keep dipping back into it. I had a lot of fun with this, so if you want to go ahead and see how I got this eye look, let's jump right on into that. I'm going to start off with the shade Libra from Terra Moons, and I'm just going to start that off in the top of my crease as my transition shade. It is going to help everything else blend out, but I'm not worried about it being too pigmented or anything like that because it's not the star of the show. It's just a blender shadow in this look. Underneath that, I'm going to go into Orchid from Terra Moons. Just grabbing that on a slightly smaller blending brush and throwing that right through the crease. So I'm building that up just a little bit and then kind of blending it into the previous purple, but I'm okay with it being more of like a wash of color. Next, I'm going to go into this shade right here called Smoky Plum from Cosmetics, and I'm going to place that on my outer V. You can see it is such a beautiful plum shade. Then I'll go back in with the brush that I used for the Orchid color and just blend out the edge. All right, now I'm going to go into the shade Midnight Winter from Terra Moons, and I'm going to use that on the outer half of my lower lash line. Okay, now I'm going to go into this teal right here called Azure Skies from Terra Moons, and I'm popping that on the front of the lower lash line. For my inner corner, I'm going to go into Runts from Divina, and I am going to go ahead and spray that just a little bit, just so I don't get any fallout. See, it's so pretty. I'm going to grab ACI13 from Adept Cosmetics. I'm just going to pop that on the outer third. It does not have to take up a bunch of space. I just want to have a little pop of red peeking through. I'm going to take the shade X30 from Burnovich, and I'm going to pop that onto the center of the lid, slightly blending it into the red. And I'm going to go into the shade X08 from Burnovich and popping that onto the inner third of the lid, blending it into the last purple. I mean, talk about a sparkly lid moment. That is everything. Finished up, I'm gonna go into the ColourPop Cherry Pie liner for my waterline, throw on some mascara, and I'll be right back. All right, for my highlighter, I'm gonna go into Terra Moon's Red Giant. Just throwing that on tops of my cheekbones. Throw it on my nose. I'm getting a little bit of a green cast, and I think I might just need to add more like pinky blush Just grabbing something a lot more pink to blend that into. This is just Fruit de Bama from the Alamar Medium Tan blush trio. And then lastly, how could I not? I pulled out one of the Kaleidos Apple liquid lipsticks. This is the shade Queen of the Night. It's been so long since I wore a lip like this, I don't even know how to feel, but I really love the overall look. I hope that you enjoyed this video and this concept. I would love to hear what colors you would include if you were doing your own Apple palette. And that is everything for today's video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.